proud graduate of Booker T. Washington too, so I'm a little bit partial. Although they attended when it began in 7th grade in high school, I could not understand it previously, but I do understand it now. But along with their attending the Gregory School at Booker T. Washington, they have also led the way in breaking barriers and overcoming challenges. It is said the glory of the elders is their insight, their knowledge, and their wisdom. So we are elated to hear their stories and their voices today, led by Regina R. Harris of Lorraine Infinity. She's an executive producer there. She is an experienced professional with over 15 years of holistic and community-oriented work in academia, program development, and philanthropy. She's a passionate social impact entrepreneur who has built amplification platforms, created spaces for women and minorities. So let's put our hands together to give a warm welcome to Ms. Jacqueline Boston, Mr. Johnny T-Bone Jenkins, and Madame Pearl Elwood. And of course, our moderator, Ms. Regina R. Harris.
Good evening to everybody for this very, very special porch talk on the legacies and the legendary people of Freedmanstown. So I'm really excited to first talk about Ms. Jacqueline Bostic, a retired postmaster, U.S. postmaster, a chairperson, and one of the leaders of Freedmanstown and the redevelopment of it. We also have Madame Perline Eloa. She told me that she went to France, and it was the best introduction she ever had. A civil rights trailblazer, and the first Black student at Tulane University. Even moreover, a longtime advocate for early childhood education. So we appreciate you forging the way in that way. Yes. And then Mr. Johnny T-Bone Douglas Gentry. Junior. The founder of the photography program at Jack Yates High School and a community historian. Let's dive into the Gregory School first, right? Because we're literally sitting on the grounds where you went to school. Tell us about your time at the Gregory School, what was going on during the time, what was the atmosphere as a student? And we'll start with you, Ms. Dillon.
Well, I guess what comes to mind first, every spring we had a wrap the maypole. I don't know why I thought about that. I've been in New Orleans too long. All I think about is fun. But at any rate, so all the girls dressed up. You had on, and you had themed dress and whatever it happens to be. And in those days, Mama sewed or grandmother sewed or somebody sewed. And we would literally wrap the maypole.
Hold that mic up a little bit closer to you so we can all hear your story.
Could you not hear me?
Ma'am.
Oh, they're in the back.
Yes.
They can go in the back. I'm so sorry. I thought I was speaking. I was talking about the maypole, and T-Bone said it was the Mayfair. You're right. You got, I don't care, whenever you want to talk about the Fourth Ward, you have to have him. I've never seen anybody with a memory like that. He remembers streets, who lived on that street, what crossed that street. I just checked with him on some grocery stores that we used to walk to when we were children. And he remembered the cross streets. I just remember the major streets. But it is so wonderful seeing him again after all of these years. So, but Gregory was a good place to be. John T-Bone and I lived in the 1500 block of Victory. So we walked to school every day. We walked to school and we walked back home. And the things that happen here happened sort of like early. I was telling someone the other day, they were asking about the National Negro Anthem. And I can recall third grade going into fourth grade every single morning after we did the Pledge of Allegiance and we prayed, we sang James Weldon Johnson's National Black Anthem. And I said, so when I went to New Orleans, I'm, more than 10 years older, and people say, you know that? You don't need the words? I said, I've been singing it since the fourth grade. So whoever my fourth grade teacher was, and I wish I could remember her name. I don't have the memory like John. I think her name was Miss. And nobody in the audience older. Y'all all so young. I think her name was Miss Carroll. Not really sure. But there were 3 teachers at Gregory that I shall never forget. First person in this whole area was my preschool teacher, Miss Birdell. And she taught us at Good Hope Baptist Church in the basement, daycare center. My first grade teacher, Miss Foster. My fourth grade teacher, Miss Terrell. And there was a young lady named Miss Gladys, I think her name was Johnson. She was my teacher in, they had, you remember those shelter buildings? They were outside of the...
Temples.
Yeah, 10 buildings would stay here forever, But those 3 people just made such a big impression on me, and I shall never forget the kind of interest they took in their students and the extra things that they did. They would have functions on Saturdays, and we would just come up here like it was Wednesday or Thursday. Now, I don't know if they had extra pay or not, but I know they were here,
Do you feel like those people that inspired you played into your interest in advocacy into early childhood education?
I think so much, especially Miss Foster. It was such a fun year because we did all kind of artsy things and started learning some, real hard language, as they call it. And then there was the library that we started going to. What was that street, John?
Frederick. We call it Frederick.
See that? I take them around with me.
Frederick and Robin.
Is that what it was? Oh, the librarian was so wonderful. And so when I was at Booker Washington, I know we're going to talk about that. I worked because I didn't get any paid for it. But it was just so much fun being at the library. I was always there. So I learned about the Dewey Decimal System. What did they ever do with the Dewey Decimal System? No, seriously. They just get rid of it?
Raise your hand if you were taught the Dewey Decimal System.
They remember?
Yeah.
Y'all remember the Dewey Decimal?
Give it up.
Okay, now, this is what you do. You find out what happened, why they took it away, and let somebody know, and they're gonna let me know. Because when I talk about the Dewey Decimal System, they say, well, what is that? I said, well, that's how you found books. You go into stacks and you know to do it. But these people were the ones who made me realize the value of reading, of books, and what you could do if you just had a lot of mouths, I guess. And so maybe they were, But it was a great place to be.
Well, I went to Gregory in the first grade, and we went to school from 1 through 6, grades 1 through 6. So when I was 6 years old, when I was 6 years old, I went to Gregory Elementary School. In fact, I just lived 2 blocks from Gregory, so we walked to Gregory. And she was talking about walking to school. And I remember my first grade teacher, Miss Fisher, my second grade teacher, Miss Chandler, my third grade teacher, Miss Griffin, my fourth grade teacher, Miss T.P. Johnson. We used to ask her what the TP meant, she would never tell us. Miss Elliott. And then the sixth grade teacher was Miss Harrison. Miss Harrison's husband was a pastor of Antioch at that time. So now I would go to her house and help Miss Harrison at her house, trying to, do a little cleaning up around the yards and that kind of thing. She lived across the streets at that time. And so in my block, at Gregory Elementary, everybody went to Gregory Elementary School. In my block, there were 29 boys in my block. And I knew all the boys in the block, and we had fights, and now they're using guns, but we would fight. We still get along. The parent would come to the house and say, "Oh, he did this and he did that," and then the parent would. Everybody would whip you in the neighborhood if you got a whipping. You need to whip it. My grades were, I made some C's.
And what were the subjects at the time in
I'm
class?
gonna tell you what my daddy did. My daddy worked at a place called American Chicken Company at that time, where they did gum and that kind of stuff. My daddy took off from work and came to Gregory Elementary School. Told the teacher to retain me. During that time, we had low and high, low third first, low first, high first. So to get promoted from the low third to the high third, you're supposed to know your multiplication tables. You're supposed to read well. Well, I knew my multiplication tables. They said to the sevens, but I knew them to the nines. So my dad said I should know them all. So he told Miss Johnson to retain me. So Mr. Gentry said, "Johnny, no, this is a multiplication table to the nines and the requirements to the sevens." He said, "Madam," he said, "do I have to go to the office and talk to Ms. Boutte?" Ms. Boutte was the principal. Ms. Boutte was nothing nice. She'd come in the restroom and whoop the boys, make them get out of the restroom. So some of the boys kind of feared Ms. Boutte because she was nothing nice when it comes to whooping the boys. So that was some of the things we experienced at Gregory. We used to wrestle we had what we call a downing ground where the boys would wrestle. And and then we have to come in and make sure we were straightened up, clean, and that kind of stuff. But we had enjoyable nights and enjoyable time at Gregory.
Ms. Bostic. So when we're thinking about Gregory, it was established in 1870. And then in 1870. So when you were in school there, what was your experience like? Because I'm assuming that y'all were classmates at some point, because it sounds like there's some shared memories, right? Were y'all
No.
classmates?
We were classmates, but we were there at the same time. Like he was old. He was the oldest of us three. I was next. I think she was in the class after me. So he was.
I finished the class in 1947 from Gregory Elementary School. I went to Booker Washington in 7th grade.
In the 7th grade, because that was high school.
Yeah, that was high school.
So
Booker Washington.
during your time at Gregory, were you doing extracurriculars? Because now we have like dance team and you can play sports and all of those things. But what were you doing at Gregory in elementary school, 1 through 6? What was your experience like?
Oh, it was a wonderful experience. As has already been said, the teachers were wonderful.
Yeah.
The teachers were great. They were really interested in the students. It wasn't just a matter of them coming to school and you were there. They believed in their students and their abilities. And so therefore, if you were smart, you got extra work, and if you were maybe cutting up, maybe you got whatever needed to be done to help you understand that you had to be quiet in class. You just couldn't, be unruly and do things that would disrupt the class.
Some would come to your house.
And
some of the teachers would come to your house.
they would come. Yes,
Yeah.
I mean.
They walked to your house.
And you certainly didn't want that. You didn't want the teacher coming to tell your parents you were not doing what you were supposed to do. But as I said, that besides the building that was there were also some a few detached buildings because we had so many students. And Miss Boutte was the principal at the time. We were all there, and she was a very strict principal. But It was a great place to go to school. It really was. It was an exceptional place.
Mr. T-Bone, I'd love to hear what was going on during that time when you were in high school, because when you were in elementary school, you were walking up the street. So the transition's a little bit different, the transportation, the times are changing. What were you wearing?
We wore khakis. The men, boys wore khakis, okay? And tennis shoes. I see some of these young people now, they're wearing the tennis shoes that we wore. I'm trying to remember the name of them now. What was the name? Converse. Also, yeah. And so we walked from 4th Ward, 1500 block of Victor Street to 303 West Dallas, which is about a mile. We walked the back streets, and some of the fellows walked together. The girls walked to school too, but they walked together. Some of the boys did not walk together. And so 7th grade, I wanted to play basketball. 9th grade, the coach let me play a little basketball. So I made a few points, and so the coach would feed us hamburgers. So I said, I was high point, I'm not eating no hamburgers, I'm gonna eat me a steak. So one of the guys said, when the coach Harbin said, Coach said, you know, I was high point man last week, and Johnny said he was going, we ate hamburgers. Johnny said he was going to eat a steak. He said, you going to do what? He said, tell him to come here. So he said, you going to eat a steak? I said, yeah, Coach, I want to eat a steak. So he said, what kind of steak? I said, I want to eat a T-bone steak. So he said, what? T-bone steak, huh? He said, be gone, T-bone. So the boys, you know, down the hall, they would call me, be gone, T-bone. Be gone, T-bone. So that's how I got the nickname of T-bone. Be gone, T-bone. So even when I went to college, TSU, the professors called me T-bone, and you know, we were in class. So I've been T-bone all these many years. So the coach said to me, you know, you're not going to be able to play because there were guys every grade who were much better basketball players than I was. So he said, I want you to be the spokesman at the football game. So he told me to go to Mr. Law, Jimmy Law, who was at Jack Yates, and he'll learn you how to talk on the microphone. So I announced all of Booker Washington's football games. That's how I learned how to be a spokesman for Booker T. Washington. So I represented Booker T. Washington all of the football games, because we didn't have basketball games. All basketball games were played in our gym or either in somebody else's. In Wheatley's gym or Yates's gym. There were only 3 schools in Wheatley, Yates, and Washington. And then we would go to Beaumont, play Charleston Park, or we'd go to Orange or some of those country towns and play on weekends. But I represented Booker T. Washington announcing football games and basketball games.
During that time, what was travel like? You know, because we're talking about racial divides and safety and travel. What did that look like when you were traveling and even playing or announcing games? We
traveled with the coach. And the coach's cars, there were 2 cars, Coach Harvey's car and Coach Ben Stevenson. He was the football coach. Either Coach Crowder, he was our track coach. So we traveled in cars with them. There were no heaters in the car, we were cold. And so we endured.
Booker T was truly a wonderful experience. And as he said, we walked to school. I grew up just 2 blocks from where we're sitting right now, where he lived 2 blocks that way. I lived 2 blocks this way on Andrews, where the brick streets are. And so we walked from Andrews on over to Dallas, to where Booker T was most of the time. We walked in the evening, we walked back. And that area now where Booker T was, is all a part of downtown Houston now. Yeah. But it was not when we were children. It was the public library was there. Booker T was there. There was an office building that was built, and Black Professionals was in.
Pilgrim Temple.
The Pilgrim Temple. Yeah. That's what it was. Right. It was called the Pilgrim Temple. Right. There were homes
some beautiful homes there. There was Antioch Church there. All of this was a part of Freedmanstown at that time. And so the school, it was a 2-story building.
Right.
And the front of the building had these tall steps, about 15 to 20 steps, very tall steps. It was a beautiful building. And the principal during the time he was there was Dr. R.B. Bryant. And he was a wonderful man and known throughout the country as a great education person. And so you had to be on top of your lesson. There was no playing around. Everybody had to be in class at the right time. There was no cutting up in the hallways. You had to go to class. You had to have your lesson. And I would say some of our really, really great students at that time graduated from Booker T. Washington. And all of the teachers were excellent. It was just a wonderful experience, whereas he worked with, in the worked with sports. A part of my extracurricular activities was actually with the music department. And I was a part of the Glee Club is what we call it. I'm trying to, my memory fails. Okay, the Glee Club, and also we had an orchestra, and I was the soloist for the orchestra. Miss Hunter was our music department.
Theater.
Oh, theater, yeah. We did have theater department.
I played volleyball. I guess we can't say enough about the quality of teaching. They were just absolutely wonderful. I had a teacher named Miss Cleveland. And Miss Cleveland taught me Latin.
She taught Latin.
I was a 4-year Latin scholar. And so many years later, when I went to Europe for the first time, I walked the Appian Way, and it was things that I had learned from Mrs. Cleveland. And when I remember when I went to Dillard, and someone said to me, "Did you take a foreign language?" I said, "Yeah, I took 4 years of Latin." Well, so, and that was an odd thing. There was, oh, she had 4 years of Latin. Where did you go to school? They named all kind of private schools. I said, no, I went to a public school all my life, you know. But we had wonderful, wonderful teachers. And I know when you look back on things, you tend sometimes to overlook some of the negative and think, but I think we were right on that. Both of them, both Jacqueline and T-Bone, have talked about the quality of teachers that we had. But I'll tell you one good teacher that I shall never forget. And my niece's husband, he's a doctor. And I always thought I would be a pediatrician, which had to be a doctor pediatrician. So I took chemistry from, you remember Mr. Cronin?
Mr. Brown didn't teach him.
See that?
Mr. Osborne, that's Mr. Osborne.
With Mr. Osborne. So I took that course, and have you ever taken something and it just didn't sink?
Oh, yeah.
I could not do anything in chemistry for love or money.
I agree.
And I finally said, Mr. Osborne, I can't stand this class. I said, I don't, the only thing I ever learned was H2O. I kid you not. And so that changed my might decide to someday be a doctor. I was gonna be a PP doctor, you know, and I think you know what that means. But having to go to only 2 schools, I think was very unique. Because you stayed, as Jacqueline said, you stayed with just the same people almost your whole lifetime, you know. And someone asked me, where do you go to junior high school? I said, we didn't have junior high school. Well, how about middle school? We didn't have middle school. We had elementary school, and then we had high school. Dr. Bryan was a wonderful scholar, he was so right. The disciplinarian was the assistant principal, Mr. Huckabee.
Mr. Norris.
Mr.
Mr. Norris.
Before Mr.
Oh, I
Huckabee.
didn't know, I didn't have
Mr. Huckabee was
any
the
connection with
biology, Huckabee was the
him.
biology teacher.
Right.
He used to make the girls, you know, we had dissect frogs in the biology class. The girls didn't want to put their hands in the frog. You make them put their hands in the Then Mr. Huckabee was an undertaker also. He had a fuel home on the corner of Dowling and Pierce at that time. So he was an undertaker. He'd make the girls put their hands in dissect the frogs. Yeah, they didn't want to do that. Mr. Huckabee was a musician also. He taught band before Conrad Johnson taught band in Booker, Washington. And somebody could have us 100-0, and Mr. Huckabee would still play, we're gonna win, we're gonna win, we're gonna win. We have to say you're gonna win. And we had an English teacher, Miss Miller, Virginia B. Miller.
Yes, indeed.
She was a little short lady, about 4 feet 2. I think we were saying she wore wigs during that time. But she didn't play in recess. So I got the girls in my class. Miss B, you'd have to come in Miss Miller's class and line the books up and stuff. So I got the girls in my class to strike. Don't line Miss Miller. Don't line Miss Miller's books up. Miss Miller can't call each of them up there and slap them on their hand. Line them books up. She made them line them books up. But we had some great time, great teachers at Booker T. Washington. You was talking about Mr. Osborne, those taught chemistry. You know, we all boys got C's because we didn't want to. So we could finish. I got a C in chemistry. Didn't know anything about no chemistry. Didn't care nothing about chemistry. I was interested in girls. There's some very attractive young ladies doing that time.
What were you doing in your 20s here in Houston? What was the atmosphere like?
I went to TSU. I couldn't have gone to any other school but TSU. During that time, so when I wanted to get away from home, I wouldn't go. So my buddy and I got an apartment in Third Ward. And
What street?
on block. In that block, we call it Shame on Sin Street. Shame on Sin Street, because we did all the partying in that other block. I mean, we did serious partying. So around the grass ramps could look like a road map. That's all I did was party. Pretty much. So I participated in sit-downs and sit-ins in the 20s. We integrated, well, the post office is now called Wine Garden. We integrated Wine Gardens. I have integrated, we integrate Folders downtown. We have to integrate some of the other places. Now, I didn't go to jail. They were putting us in jail. My daddy told me if I went to jail, he wasn't going to get me out. So I had assisted TSU and assisted Prairie View. And my brother was getting ready to go to school pharmacist. So when the police would come out with ease, I never went to jail. Don't know about Bill Lawson when I was in that group of folks back then. I remember Bill Lawson when we with integration, when we integrated the lunch counters. I also went to church so much as a kid, I swore I wasn't ever go to church no more. My mother was a Baptist, and my dad had gone to the Church of the Living God, which was on the corner of Valentine and Solid at that time. So I'd go to church with some of my friends who were Unitarians, they were Methodists, Catholic, and so I couldn't understand why my friends, my buddy friends, had to go in that little booth and tell Mr. Charlie that white men their business. Because there were no black priests during that time. There were only white priests. So I could understand that. So I wound up I'm a Baptist by choice.